brings you to this realm, the region of warriors, with fast-paced articulation, laced in lines, hidden sublime, fall from the callous hands of time.
I really knew what time it was to really give a fuck about the cause.
In this future begin, mind stricken over the time that's ticking. Line that's clicking.
You know what time it is, but you won't look at the clock.
My mind drifts on memories and time spent on planet Earth to find shit to write about. It's time tick, they say that ours is running out.
I swear, there's not enough minutes within the 24-hour span to get what I got to get finished. My time is diminished, so I hustle to achieve the next assignment before subject to the hourglass confinement.
Final sand slips away in the hourglass. He ponders a lesson he learned in the past.
Time is of the utmost essence. Find my presence at Tuesday, Thursday sessions to learn my lessons. That time is of the utmost essence. You can find my presence at Tuesday, Thursday sessions. We make progression on a regular basis. Classes will be held on a regular basis, and Thursdays time on a regular basis.
Welcome. This is the One Great Work Warriors. Brandon, Jerry, Derek, Jim, and myself, Chris. And we're here today in time to talk about time. And we were all on time to have this discussion. Time is part of the control matrix that I've noticed around us. There are various, aspects of our society. I think a lot of them are part of the collectivist or the authoritarian ideologies that allow people to fall into these ways of thinking where we believe in fantastical ideas that we can control one another. And modern versions of slavery are forms of government, are forms of forced education, are forms of time control. A lot of these things teach us that we have to be ready when they snap the whip, when the bell rings, it's time to get in line, stand at attention, all this type of thing. So I don't know. Someone sent me like one of them YouTube videos, and it's about this dude named Anatoly Fomenko, who had this whole theory about how a whole portion of time was either stolen or removed from the timeline, and there's this discrepancies between the Gregorian calendar or the Julian calendar, these type of things. But, when we look at nature, it has a very natural flow, and it's been this sort of modified aspect of changing the calendars up and causing this erratic time changes and all this stuff that does seem somewhat intentional to me. And so I kind of like some of those theories because it explains, like, why is it so stupid? Why do we have to have all these odd numbers and months missing days and all this kind of thing? It just adds to the confusion and the complexity unnecessarily, where it's stealing from us in so many ways, our time or money, through all these complex ways of tracking time and saying we're not on it as we should be and this type of thing. So basically, I'm thinking about time and the way it screws us up, or the way that people in charge can use it to screw up the average folks and to keep them in line and to keep them from thinking from their self, and finding that sovereign, freedom expanding way of living where time doesn't control you, but it it's more like something you use to gauge when to plant food and, when it's time to hunt or when it's time to whatever, So I'm going to wrap it up there for now and pass it on to my man, Derek, and see what he's got to say about time and time as control weapon.
Yeah, I know. It's so fucking Gregorian these days, right? What the hell, right? And you brought up a great point, and thinking about it, and it just clicked to me like 1 second ago, or half a minute ago, or whatever, however we measure these things, right? All in good time, yeah. As far as how we process these things and how we utilize our time wisely, but moral relativism. How does that apply to the manipulation or the dictation of time, and how things have been rearranged, throughout millennia, centuries, and yeah, Gregorian, Julian. What about the Mayan calendar? What about the 13-month cycles that seem to correspond more to that lunar cycle, and taking it to women's menstrual cycle? And it's not I'm not going to mansplain these things, because menstrual take the word men out of it because it's not a man thing. Mensuel means monthly in French, actually. Menstrual stems from that, and it stems from Latin, French, Latin to English, right? So the monthly cycle of women's, lunar cycle, if you will, goes to that, 13 calendar, cycle, if you will. And people have heard about this Saturn moon matrix issue going on, right? So what is that? What's up with this fallen time matrix? What is the hex on Saturn on the northern pole, right? What is Saturn in relation to Kronos, Father Time, the black cube, the hex on that aspect of it, and the correlation to the moon, and how the moon is kind of out of place and has Earth influenced by this, gravitational pull, the ebb and flow of the motion of the ocean, and that type of thing. So that on a multidimensional level, I know I'm skipping ahead of some things, but that is a manipulation of the time that we're in this realm, unfortunately. But to kind of ground things out, I love how George Carlin, he has some great comedic quotes on time in and of itself, like at least like 5-10 minutes about time. Take the time to look into that. And I've sound sampled him as well as Alan Watt and Manly P. Hall, Mark Passio, Seth Esposa, and others in regards to just time in general. And remember that time is one of those spiritual currencies in regards to time and attention. How are we utilizing that to fulfill, the allotted time that we have in our life to be the best version of ourselves, right? And fulfill the mission towards, the proper alignment in regards to the universal principles and the displacement that we're in regards to just, we're not free. So we need to find ways to be free in these draconian times. So anyways, I guess I'll pass it off. But anyway, so what I want to say with George Carlin, he said, when are we? According to the Mayan calendar, it's this time. According to the Asian calendars, we're like 1,000 years ahead or beforehand. Going, or all around the world, there's all these different measurements of time. So when are we? Who are we even? So the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and all these things that, can we use the trivium to, discover the truth behind all these things, right? So who has the actual answer? Again, going back to moral relativism, when are we? Who made it up? Is it all man-made? So take the measurement of time, notice this, and recognize and realize the real lies of its human design, with units measuring the precessions in space, the rates that seasons change, and the way of seconds, minutes, and hours are arranged. And synchronizing with time that's digitalizing might make you feel strange. So, try not to be deranged in these, weird ass fucking times that we're in the TikTok-ification of things, in whether social media or TikTok, the quickening of artificial ignorance, not intelligence, right? So anyways, I'm going to pass it off to Jerry. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, brother, and thank you for that because, well, I think that was great, first and foremost. And something that came to mind is how, say, these controllers, they get rid of history, right? So we're not really aware of where we came from, that sort of thing. And they get to kind of write a new script on what happened, maybe based on lies and all this. So it's important to sort of understand history and write history now that will change the course of our future in regards to freedom and slavery. But moving on, here's something I heard that kind of struck me. I don't know if it will strike you the same, but essentially it's if you don't respect your time, how will others respect yours, sort of thing. And that got me thinking, like, man, shit, I gotta respect time. And time is one of those things where I've been pondering a lot about because as I'm getting older, I understand the value of it. And as you mentioned, Derek, that it's one of the spiritual currencies, right? And maybe attention is a weapon, as a weapon, it could be a future topic, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Yeah, so time it's going by fast. I mean, that's why we have to take advantage of it while we have it. It's non-renewable, it's valuable, and that's why it's one of the spiritual currencies, as with attention. But yeah, I mean, I was also thinking if you don't respect time, how will time respect you, sort of thing? I mean, I know you mentioned the Gregorian calendar and this and that. I mean, it just really feels like we're in this time where it's kind of designed for us to be these, I guess, what do you call this? Like outcome, like it's all about the outcome. Oh yeah, we're gonna do this so we can maximize our revenue and stuff like that. And it's all very left brain, and it's disregarding the right brain, the intuition, the aligning with the moon cycle and this sort of thing. So that's why it always feels like we're busy and we're in the rat race and we're behind time, and it's just never enough. It's oh yeah, we have 24 hours in the day, but that's all man-made, as you mentioned, Derek. So, and then I don't know if you guys have heard of the OODA loop, but essentially it's the observe, orient, decide, and act. And essentially, if they cut out the orientation, then our deciding and acting is going to be off. So essentially, how do they do that is by having us constantly observe with the news. Oh, this happened, that happened, and there's constantly news breaking out. It's always a tragedy, another tragedy. It's never aligning to our intuition, to ourselves. So they know this. If they know that we can't orient, how are we ever gonna be able to decide and act on what matters, which is understanding reality, I mean the laws of nature and freedom. And yeah, they control the tempo, so things are fast paced, right? I mean, that's gonna lead to burnout. And then how effective are you gonna be if you're burnt out? I mean, unless you're anti-fragile, which is all about mindset. Hey man, they got people in submissions here. So this is why we have to observe that sort of what do you call it? You want to observe the truth versus the distractions. And yeah, same with the notifications, you know, constantly getting notifications, constantly getting distracted. Social media, that's what they do. They on purposely want to keep you on the app. And if you're living day in and day out like that, man, you're not really getting anything done. That actually matters. And I think it's important for us to kind of understand what would you call that? Just like the goal, right? So we don't lose focus and we're able to get shit done. So yeah, I would just say stay in the now and don't be reactive, man. And I'll pass it to Brandon.
Great points that you brought up. Because I can build off of a lot of the things that you had brought up. So, let's get a good definition of time. You're talking about hours or, to divide. Because when you think about when we divide our time up, we're actually giving that to, like to others. So you go spend a couple hours with a loved one, like with a family member. It's almost like you're dividing a piece of yourself and you're giving it to them to go spend time with them. So, time itself isn't something that's bad or evil. It's just it, it's a means of measurement. The distance between point A and point B. So, we can get stuck in these forms of thinking and, like these forms of being in the world. And that's really where time can be used as a form of, mismanagement or, of a hindrance, a form of, slavery, a form of, like hypnosis, getting people to, constantly like look down, like at their watches. And it's like you're getting, stuck in that clock, in that hour, like, held division that's, like that staircase, like when you're at that boring job and you're just constantly, like looking at your clock, just constantly getting in that, that loss of focus, doing that slave labor or, like doing that slave job. And that's, like one of the reasons why the clock has always been used as, like a symbol of like hypnosis, like a symbol of like the mind of, like a symbol of mind control, the old school clocks, that had the second hand, each time it was ticking, each second it made that tick tock sound. And, like that sound was always, a reminiscence of, the state of mind, like conditioning, like someone else, piloting or steering your mind. And even a lot of like the old school great grandfather clocks, it had that pendulum swing, going back and forth, like kept reminiscent of that tick tock sound. So, it was always kind of symbolic of, the state of mind and, like, what are you doing, like with your time, because your time is going to be your attention. And, like, what are you dividing that up on and what are you spending that, on? So, and then, being able to understand time too is also a function of, awareness and consciousness, because you have to be able to like understand like basic numbers, then therefore you can understand like arithmetic, and therefore you can understand like more complex, forms of equations, fractions, and all of that stuff, like just by, like understanding the basic, forms of numbers, equations, and arithmetics. By understanding that, then we can understand time, then we can understand cycles and like greater depths and systems. Like when it comes to structure and like seeing, like bigger pictures and of like complex, vast things, having that understanding of time, is of great depth, because how can individuals come and, work and, build things, like being able to task and, like manage our times on, like a, like organizational, basis is a requirement in order for us to, learn and grow. So, that awareness in and of itself, comes with a form of just, consciousness. So that right there is to be, understood, but again, we get so focused on like the rat race, stuck in that, kind of left brain, stuck on the more, like stuck in the maze, mindset. And that's where, like it is being used as a weapon. It is being used as a tool of manipulation. Because when you look at how society is structured, you have the 24-hour day. And then, how they say you get 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, then 8 hours to do everything else. well, if you have a family, like there's just not enough time to, to manage your time out to do all the stuff that you want. Then, what it, when it comes to doing the own for individual work, there's no time for that, so you're restless. So then, you spend a lot of that time focused on what, like Jerry said, how distractions, because if something is a distraction, is to draw your attention away from something, and that's what most of society is based upon, is distracting your time, your focus, your awareness, your held attention away from things that don't serve you, things that don't lead to what you say you want, things that don't lead toward freedom. Like what if we had a society that like had a 6 and a 4, 6 hours of work, 6 hours of rest, 6 hours to go spend with family, and 6 hours, to do the great work, and like doing internal work, and for like more education, something like that. It's like, where is the actual time for the inner work, and self development, and like the more education, based upon that 8, 8, and 8, and that's why you have to be able to sacrifice, your time, to pull time away from others, so we can, make time for the things, that, that really do matter. Because at the end of the day, like, time is the one thing that all life form, strive to want more of, So time is the one thing that we all need more of, because we always say, there's never enough time, but yet we're never spending our time wisely. We're never spending our time, doing the right thing. We're always spending our time being distracted with the bullshit, like we raised our kids, in an environment full of, distractions. And then we propagate these distractions onto other, individuals and their kids, because when you think about it, from the time that you get up, and like from the time that you leave your house, all these corporations, all these business, like all of these individuals, they all want your time. They all want your, focus. They all want your, hell attention. They all want you to divide your being up and have it focus on whatever bullshit they're trying to sell you. And that's the unfortunate thing, so you have to be aware of this and be conscious of this, and, spend your time, doing the things that you say that you want, and doing the things of quality, and not spending your time, doing mindless stuff on TikTok, being a mindless zombie, and, following what the herd and what the crowd is basically doing. And that's one of the ways, how time has been used as a weapon, to enslave the mindless, masses. All right, Jim.
Yo, thanks guys. Yeah, so the big thing I see when time is money, right? That's what I think of um when you're talking about like social media. They want your time, and the longer you're on there, the more chance it is that you're going to be spending money on something. Or you know, you mentioned going like working the 9 to 5, and you make more money if you work overtime, right? And then you gotta set your alarm clock to wake up at a time that you don't even want to wake up to go make money, right? I was thinking like the alarm clock is kind of like a weapon. It's like it would be nice to just wake up when you want to wake up and do what you want to do with your time, but we're all in this religion, religious money system that people are all bought into, like the rat race, right? And so I remember a few years ago just seeing a rich guy talk about um, the richest people in the world can have anything, but the one thing that they can get that other people can't get is time. Like they could have a private jet and go wherever they want. They don't have to wait, at the airport for the commercial flights. And I mean, for like a real extreme example of that I came across recently is if you guys ever heard of Rory McIlroy, who's like one of the best golfers in the world. He's living down in Florida, and the Masters tournament, which is a major, is couple hours away by plane in Georgia. And he's got so much money that he is able to drop his daughter off at school in the morning get on his plane, fly up to the golf course, be at the golf course at say like 11 o'clock, play for like 5 hours, practice, and get back on a plane around 4:30 and be back home for dinner with his family. And that's what he was doing, and he won the tournament. But that's like an example of how like time is money, and like what you if the more money you have, the more time you can get to do whatever the hell you want. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah, time is just like this grid that we all like, especially now with with everyone having a cell phone. Like I never would wanted to wear a watch, and I remember when I spent a lot of time in Africa too, and there was a saying that like whatever white guy tourist, they call me a Mzungu in Swahili. Um, they said that we have the watches and they have the time, right? Because they were less, they had more time. They they're still a little more indigenous now, but everyone's getting a smartphone in their hands over there now. They're all becoming part of it's getting sucked in to their time's being taken from them more and more and more in the third world for sure. And those phones are definitely a way of getting their time. Um, so yeah, that was I was thinking about that. There was something else I was gonna say. But just basically, time is money, where the more you can get done, the faster you get it done, the more money there is to be made. And that's the mentality. That's just the mentality. And I don't know. I just been recently, like lately, working so much and don't have the time to do the things that I really want to do. And sometimes it makes me sick to my stomach, that I really want to be doing these other things. And I'm out here working for rich people. I'm doing their fucking shit, like that they don't have to do because they have the money not to do it. So it's kind of interesting. Uh, but yeah. Anyway, I'll be setting my alarm clock tomorrow morning actually to do what I want to do before I go to work. So there you go. I guess we're going back to Chris.
Yeah, that's one way to take your time back, schedule in
Yeah.
time for yourself, which is, action part of the plan. We'll get to that. But I'll start a little more far out. Like you said, time is money, but, time is also energy in this realm. And it's cool going after Jim, who's um, a plant guy, a farmer, someone who grows things, right? Like if you all through time, that's been a huge method of survival for humans, right? Planting things, right? But you have to invest quite a bit of time if you want to um, grow things, right? Like or tend to the growth of plants, right? You put in the time first, right? You prepare the area where you're going to do the planting, you get the seeds, and then you keep an eye on that area, keep out the weeds, or till the soil, whatever you want to do, to protect those plants and help them grow. You put in the time, right? So then all of a sudden, if somebody shows up right before your plants come due to harvest and kicks you out of there or takes your harvest, boy, did you lose anything? Yeah, you lost a lot of time, right? Time is energy. And in terms of plants, that's food, right? So they're kind of like an equal thing. One is the other. And it occurred to me, like when you think in terms of like far out philosophy and science, time and space are essentially the same thing. If you were out on a spaceship that had all the power you needed to go as fast as you wanted, the only thing that would ever stop you is time, right? Is how far you could go, is how much time you had, right? It's kind of like that in this realm that we're in. You're born, you got as much time as you could go until this thing you're driving, your human body, runs out. But now we got all these extra complications and distractions added by other human beings who are trying to manage your time, and there's a lot of forms of how that's done. I mentioned school with the alarms and the bells. That takes us back to the research of like Spooner and Pavlov, right? People that realize that, that you can do these experiments on animals, right? And if you ring a bell right before you're about to feed them every day, the dog starts to drool before you even feed them. Just hearing the bell starts the drool going. And so we got these systems in school, these kind of Spooner psychology things with the bells ringing, getting us used to things happen on this man's invented clock. When we actually have built into us the universal clock of the universe, we have a circadian rhythm activated by light through our eyeballs, and goes into the brain, and then the brain puts out melatonin, serotonin at different times. These chemicals are regulated by the forces of the universe, and so there already is a clock in place. The universe has its own clock, and that's what the progression of the stars and the people follow the houses, right? For all humankind, people have watched the stars and use that to discern all kinds of things, feelings, stories, emotions, dancing around fires, right? Fires, you make a fire at night when it's dark out. Well, when you got city lights all over the dang place and sodium, uh, fluorescent, all these chemicals burning, neon, all these different colors in the air, different wavelengths, that's all distracting and affecting our body's ability to stay in sync with the actual settings of the universe, the default settings. So instead, we're off on this other roller coaster where, authoritarian homeboys coming in with like, oh, we're going to change the time here at this month, at this time. Well, you crossed this line. Now it's 2 hours ago. It's like, these things add to the frustration. On top of all that, getting more real, like we're all in the slavery system where we project it and we commit to it, and we bring our friends in through all these sayings, these things we say, like, I don't have enough time, I'm getting old, I'm getting older, I'm running out of time, I'm losing time. Like, we're constantly using these sayings in our society. Our language is a slave language. It's built around these authoritarian collectivist ideas, right? Even with all our time saving devices, we're still working 8 or more hours a day on a regular job, which to me is just, it's too much. When I start taking control of my own time and running my own work, sometimes I do more than 8 hours, but never in a row like that all at once. I try to split it up or do different tasks. If you look at some of the worst injuries, I did some studying on kinesthesiology and also ergonomics. I had a job where I actually got paid to study up on ergonomics and do ergonomic like one-on-one meetings with people and help them fix their workstation. People that sit in offices were having way more damage to their bodies than people I worked with in the construction field, because they're doing repetitive tasks. And when you do repetitive tasks over and over, it's really hard on the body. It's really bad for the body to do the same thing over and over. And most tasks we do, whether it's growing, running from animals, trying to catch animals, trying to pick up plants, all these climbing from trees, trying to build things, requires your body to be in all these different positions and adapting, just like we're adapting to the weather and the light, right? And so these are natural functions, and we're being replaced by buildings where the dark and the light cycles are different. The hot and the cold cycles are often the opposite of what they should be, because of forced air systems that, it's going to be hot where it should be cold, it's going to be cold where it should be hot, and your body's all out of sync, all thrown off. And then we're saying things in the office like, oh, can't believe it's Friday, and another day, another dollar, right? Oh, staring at the clock again, and then we're getting hit by the government, right? Every few months, there's regular things that hit you. Registration. Oh, you got to pay your registration. You got to get your tags, just like your cow getting your little, you know, your G26, cow number G26. Go get your registration, stand in line, go through the cycle, right? The cycle of ownership that proves that, oh, your ID's, about to expire. It's that time again, isn't it? You got to pay up the money, suck it up, right? They come around, it comes around. We call, oh, here it comes around again, right? We get used to all these cycles of punishment, and we're paying to be punished by our own territory we live in. You're getting taxed 30 to 50% of everything you do from, before you're even able to vote. And then that money's being used to tax you more to catch you maybe for going a little bit over the speed or not completely coming to a stop exactly at the right place right before the freaking line, and the picture takes, from a robot, and boom, $500 or some crazy amount of money that's literally like stealing the rib out of your body. That's your energy, that's your time. You put in that energy to get that money. Money is your energy. It literally is like taking pieces of your body. You have to grow your skin back, and your skin comes off when it gets old, and your body's replacing itself. So if you figure in 7 years, every part of the body has basically replaced itself. So if you add all the tax in the time of your life, the energy's been stolen from you. That's like you know, an organ or a finger or a leg that's been stolen from you in your time and your energy that you weren't able to use the way you would have. And then the last thing I want to say is time is relative, man. When you go out to the lake or you go camping, you take some time off of this structure and you get out of that rhythm, you notice something different. Your stress levels are different, your cortisol levels are different. You just feel different because you don't have to be anywhere tomorrow. You don't have to get out. You don't have these looming things about to crash down on you ahead of you, and you get this feeling of leisure, like, and you might stop and be like, damn, it feels like I've been out here for hours and it's only been 15 minutes. Time can be relative because you can experience it in a relative sense, right? And you don't get that if you know that, oh, the papers are due, the paperwork, it's time to go to work, it's time to go home, it's time for my show on Netflix. All right, that's all, folks. I'm gonna hand it on to Derek.
Cheers, brother. Yeah, and I love how you brought up some solutions, and yeah, I'll just add on to that before I get into my other spiel of. So yeah, there's ways we can break out of this time matrix bullshit, miasma, and it really is like kind of understanding and recognizing and activating within ourselves, our multi-dimensionality, if you will. So if that sounds cliche or fucking new age or whatever the fuck, but we are multi-dimensional beings. Even just take it to the mental and the physical plane. That's two different dimensions. And that, how are we integrating all that and expressing that as a stellar fucking human being here on 3D and trying to anchor in higher, dimensions and all that shit? Anyways, it's not about ascending out anywhere. It's about being here and elevating the fuck out of this existence and reality and breaking free of the confines of the distorted chronos of things. And there are ways to break out of this. They say time is linear, right? When we are non-linear beings, how do we do that? Yeah, Chris, you mentioned, like, we need to just break out of the mundane routine type of stuff. Like, we're trapped in so many cycles, the rat race and all this stuff, and like the 9 to 5 hours. Like, I know that construct has been kind of shifted a little bit, but there's other things in regards to like lunchtime or dinner time, or throughout the year there's certain vacation times and spring break and all this stuff. Are those not programs? Like, yeah, there's certain aspects of the changing of the seasons, like, oh, we get a ski week when you're in school, right? And all this stuff. And y'all ever notice how the prices of travel skyrocket during those periods? It's like, I saw this British woman complaining about that. They're trying to implement some kind of like tax on hotels during holiday vacation periods of just people trying to take a fucking break out of the fucking matrix. But no, they can't do that because they're getting taxed on top of tax on top of motherfucking tax and all this stuff. And it's part of the whole scarcity based mind control or population control as well. And time is an aspect of this whole scarcity based mind control. And that's another name I forgot to mention that I sound sampled a lot in a lot of hip hop mixes that I have done in the past. And I did a whole series of them. Sorry, I didn't even mention that in the first round, but I have 10 mixes that span around like 12 hours of conscious hip hop that go over aspects of time, and the wordplay is ridiculous, and the insights and introspections are off the fucking charts and non-linear for the most part, or whatever, But so Bob Tuskin, he was at the Free Your Mind conference number 3, I believe, and he did a whole presentation on scarcity-based mind control, and one of the segments was about time, and that segment was genius. And so that's a reference for people to check out as well, in regards to how we're being controlled by that and how time has been weaponized against us. So yeah, TikTok, the time never stops, especially on their fucking watch, because they're looking at that shit closer than we are, to the motherfucking nanosecond. What are we doing with that time span? You know what I mean? So it all goes back to using our time wisely and transcending the linear aspects of this fucking bullshit. So yeah, ways to kind of get out of the miasma. Yeah, Chris, you mentioned, getting back into nature, going on a camping trip or whatever. How about, just getting into that meditative mind state, whatever practice that works for you. It's not about like, some new age fucking shit. If that works for you, great. There's so many different ways that we can do that. And, you could just tell when you're in that state, that flow state, time is kind of irrelevant sometimes. Fasting, going on a fast. I've done this multiple times, and working in a restaurant at the same time, and just I had my mind blown going over this, of like just seeing how people just like function, like, and how their bodies are controlled of like, oh, I have to eat at this certain hour and whatever, or their jobs are dictated by this, like, oh, like I have a lunch break or whatever, so I have to eat or do something like that. Do you have to? Like, are you not going to let your own body dictate when the fuck you're going to eat something or not? Or what the fuck? You know what I mean? And it's like, who decided we have to have 3 meals a day? You know what I mean? Like, a hermetically sealed lifestyle, it doesn't need that much fucking weight in the body. Straight the fuck up. So that's another thing to consider. If you want to get into that more lucid state to transcend time, fasting is a very great solution to that. Even like, and like, yeah, the dancing, I'm thinking about, Leslie Powers, I just see the way she just flows through that, beautiful, expression and that kind of stuff. It's just like, that is like transcending time. And you can see that with, all different types of dance, whether it be salsa, b-boy, breakdancing, whatever, right? Breath work, right, Chris? And we ain't got to be Wim Hofing it either, right? But and we don't have to take it all the way to like a Vision Quest type of 3-day hardcore, no cell phone contact, whatever, in a forest, and you know what I mean, you're fending for yourself. Although that is a great rite of passage, kind of like in a sense, a shamanic initiation. Although not everyone can be a fucking shaman. Let's be real. But we all are supposed to be magicians in this realm. I mean, just take it to the tarot, because those are representations of archetypes of consciousness that reside within us, So being in the circle of the magician, that also helps one transcend time, seeing yourself within the eye of the storm type of thing. Just take it to that, being in that fulcrum of that, and just trying to neutralize everything. Being in that, like 0 point time space realm, if you will. But anyways, sorry if that's like over the top, a little new agey, whatever. But yeah, there's ways people can cultivate their own quickening of these things, of breaking out of the matrix. I mean, like, even making love with a partner, that transcends time as well, right? Being in that special moment, how are you really enriching those moments in time, not being dictated by social what's the word, expectations or whatever the fuck, capitulations. So anyways, so we need to get more in tune with the celestial clockwork of things, but also recognize that our perspective of Earth is at a 23.4 degree tilt on the axis to the original vantage point, which is not Polaris, actually, it's Thuban. But that's another topic, but things to consider, and also take your astrology to different perspectives in regards to the tropical or Western and the Vedic, So there's a lot of stuff we can consider with time and just like, yeah, break it down to the whole measurements of things. Yeah, that is all I'm going to say, because we can go on for hours and hours, which I have over the past week or two with my fucking live streams. So anyways, Jerry, what's good, y'all? Thanks for your time, by the way. Sorry.
You're welcome, man. I want to be here, so not really a problem, right? And I know, I want to say someone mentioned working and how they don't want to be there, that sort of thing. Yeah, I just think that we gotta kind of change our mentality a bit, right? I mean, about work. Like, oh, this shit's fucking dreadful and shit. But it's like, why the fuck are you doing it? Because you want that money, and that's gonna fucking help you buy food. We want that organic food, which in turn will give you the fuel. And I know you talk about fasting, which is incredible as well. Changed my life. But say when you break that fast, you want to sort of eat some healthy food. You want to have just enough resources to get the word out there, right? It's, hey, slavery's going on, guys. Like, does anybody care? That sort of thing. Like, fuck, man. It's like the shit is not gonna change by itself because controllers currently have this world under their thumb, basically, and they're not willing to change that. So it has to be changed. Yeah, anyways, man. I know we talked about the Gregorian calendar, and it's just honestly, man, it is really unfortunate because it is confusing. Oh, now if say I operate on Eastern time and then the time changes, man, I mean, it gets hectic. But it's good to know the time changes, I suppose, but I think it's really done to confuse us, and they are the ones who are creating the calendars. It's so what? That means that they're in control of it, right? Another form of control. And yeah, I don't know, man. Just as Chris mentioned, with the universe has its own time to sleep, that sort of thing, time to work. Yeah, man. I mean, sleep is super important. Kind of difficult to function when your brain hasn't really got that sleep to heal, you know, the traumas and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I really like how Brandon mentioned, yeah, what about 6 hours a day doing the great work, doing that inner work? It's kind of taking the time to become whole, being creative. I mean, that is not taught really in school, I want to say, but they do have art class, but it's not, hey, let's do that inner work. And it's just super interesting, man. The whole timeline. Oh, there's a time I existed, and the time I envision myself in the future. And then there's the now where, say, I'm doing a crazy hard workout, every second feels like it's taking so long, or basically you're waiting for something to come and it's like you're so impatient. And that's why patience is a virtue, something we must cultivate. So, yeah, I mean, using the trivium is super important, kind of not be susceptible. And yeah, I mean, as Chris mentioned, I think we should get in tune with nature, man. I think shit, you might find some answers there that may change the course of your life and actually do things that will make a greater impact and slavery. But I just also want to say that people are hooked on the instant gratification, the whole porn use, or just like porn addiction, you could even say, and just I know Brandon mentioned food addiction. It's like constantly fucking stuff my face. It's like, hey, maybe the fucking fasting is a good thing, balance it out. And I think I mentioned the trivium because it's like when there's a problem, there's always a solution. And yeah, I just also want to mention how, yeah, they do think in fucking centuries and shit. And I don't know, some of us or some people think in like, oh, like the now, right? It's like, oh, can't wait for the fucking next notification, sadly. And that's affecting us, man. And yeah, I mean, when they basically start the fiat system, right? It's like, yeah, give us your gold, we'll give you this fucking paper that's worthless. It's like the energy was given away. And yeah, wars have been won because of time, right? It's like, oh yeah, they fucking ran out of food. We waited enough, and yeah, now they're gonna die by themselves. And yeah, I'm just thinking about like probably a war in Russia. I think it's like they surrounded some people, and like now they have no fucking resources. It's like they waited it out. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know, man. I think that just might be a reason why people become black pilled. It's like, why the fuck am I gonna do something like that? Shit's not gonna change, and it's like it has to do with oh, things have always been this way. It's like it's a fucking trap, and it's an easy one to fall into, and that's why I hope this shocks you and say, hey, bro, we're not about that. We're about fucking changing this current reality and making it heaven. And then that also reminds me of this whole fucking thing where the governments they plan shit like psyops, like 9/11, and now we're like, oh yeah, now it's time we're gonna attack Afghanistan or to get the oil and whatnot. And it's like people love it. So yeah, man, I don't even know what else to say, but we gotta change, man. And you hold the solution in your hands.
And one of the great things about the time that we live in now is, having access to the internet, this technology and the information and the knowledge that we have in order to learn and gain an understanding of our ancestors, the ones who come before us, and how can we not make some of the same mistakes? And another one of the benefits of this information is to learn some of the techniques of mind control, conditioning, and cult mentality and slave tactics that have been introduced into human consciousness. So toward the end of the Industrial Revolution, you had this idea of scientific management. You had a bunch of big time industries, that was revolutionizing, the way of life. And you had all these big machines, and you had a lot of, commerce and big business, and you had a lot of things that needed to be mass produced. So you had to come up with a way in order to pay the workers. And then you get into this idea of unions and managers and like workers' rights and all this stuff, like which was like major during this time, during the like the late 1700s and the late 1800s. So you had this fellow by the name of Frederick Taylor, who came up with this idea called scientific management. And what this whole idea was to do was to bring in science into the whole managerial, aspect of mass production. And like things were different. And what he would do is he would always have a clock, and like he would time you, put everything on a timer, like run tasks, like run numbers, and like boil everything down to like this particular task. Because at the time there wasn't like a universal standard of doing a particular task or a particular job, where he wanted to boil it down to do this standard way of doing one job, and he called it like the best way of doing this job, and that would be the standard. Well, like ultimately what this led to is like factory lines, and like the whole kind of slave labor, the kind of like robot, like McDonald's kind of wage labor that we have now. Because also what this incorporated too was, like you didn't really train people to do a myriad of jobs. You just kind of boiled it down to do one simple job. You trained them at that job, and you trained them to do that job as best as they can. And they only got paid for doing that job. So the person who flips the burgers only got paid for flipping the burgers. The person who, like does the fries get paid for doing the fry. Like these same ideas are still embedded in a lot of big time corporations and like mass production, today. And another thing that this also did was it bred a more relativistic, or like this kind of survival of the fittest mentality, because the whole idea of scientific management was about production. So the more productive you were, then the more money you would get paid. So in this notion of the worker, if they produce more, you got paid more, and of course, if you got paid more money, more access to things, freaking life. But ultimately what this led to is, of course, mass production. Of course, companies make a lot more money, but it ultimately led to a lot of dumb workers. So this is like way before John Taylor Gatto and like the whole dumbing down in the education stuff. Like this shit goes back way before then. Because like what this would do is just create robots, because you didn't really need to train people to do, problem solving skills. You didn't really need to like train people to do, like multiple things, like in a job. You just need to train them to do one job, And then once that job got honed down, then this became the standardized way of doing things, all across the board. So, like this was like the modernized way of doing things. And, of course, this doesn't really equate to a good, thriving, like livelihood, because as the worker, as the individual, it kind of belittles you, because then, like the ones at the top just look at you, to produce, so you just become a cog in the machine, just producing. Well, the more you produce, the more you make. Well, then the more you produce, the more time you are spending there, and there's less time you're spending doing other things. And then too, like the more you're doing that, you're kind of getting stuck in that mentality of, just like the 8-hour robot, like the 8-hour robot. And we all know like that's what those factories and like like the whole mass production and those whole like like production lines during that time. That's what it was all about because it wasn't really like true education that was going out. Like anyone could go to those, those labor jobs and like those railroad jobs and just get paid and, hired on the spot, because it was about manual labor. If you didn't know how to think, you didn't need to know how to problem solve skills. Hell, you didn't even know how to read. It was just all about doing those tasks and, doing it as effectively and efficiently. The word efficient was one of the biggest selling points of the whole scientific management. Like they always talked about being efficient. Well, efficient doesn't always equate to better. Sometimes it can, but sometimes it may not. Efficient doesn't always equate to quality. So like this whole idea of time is money. Well, that really comes down to like this whole mind control right here is being more efficient with our time so we can make more money. And like that kind of gets into like the whole trap, of the whole time is money and the whole mass production and the whole, fighting of, who's going to win the carrot, like in this whole, rat race that we all, see and that, people, still fall victim to. But these ideas are like hundreds of years old, and we still see them alive in a lot of big time corporations, today. So not much has really changed. But it's just one of the ways people can kind of see how, you know, conditioning can get people stuck in, like this time slave, way of, you know, viewing, her reality of just, getting stuck in that 8 hour, 9 to 5 job, slaving away for money, slaving away from money, giving your hours hell away to this job, to this corporation. Think about it. If you've been at a job for 30 something years, like how many hours of that, like is that toward, like you've given to this company, held to this job 30, 40 years, tens of thousands of hours gone, that you never get back.
Yep. Thanks, Brandon. So, I don't have too much more to say except ask a question like, what are you gonna do when your time is up, right? Like, what what would you do if you knew when your time is up, right? And in the course of your lifetime, if you knew you were gonna die on a certain day, would you be doing what you're doing right now? Would you be doing different things with your time? It's like kind of a I wish I knew in a way. I don't know. So it could be kind of depressing too. I was talking to someone about it, like to know when you're actually gonna, it's like I'd probably be living my life a lot differently if I knew I was gonna die a year from now. Um, so that's one thought about, our lifetime and our time is limited. Like, like we only live to like 100 years max. And I don't even think I want to live that long, but, um, on this hell, this planet, this hell planet. Well, not to be so negative, but this reality that we're creating, right? Like Brandon was saying, it's like when people go on vacation and then they say, "Oh, well, we got to go back to reality," because that's where you're spending most of your time because of this belief system of reality that we're creating. There was just one other thing, because Jerry had mentioned patience, and you guys talked a little bit about nature and how nature is patient, right? And what we do with our messed up minds is try to speed up nature and mass produce, you know, expedite, expedite nature and create microwaves and all that. But I mean, like agriculture is like definitely one that you can look at where we're expediting and mass producing, going against nature and totally screwing the world up because of it. speeding things up. Like I always, that's one of my big ones is, getting in time, in rhythm with nature is is a huge factor. It's like, what the hell are we doing, man? And that's really what it comes down to, right? The simplicity of what we're saying mostly is, what our minds, our beliefs are creating is it's a disaster. So um that's it, man. It would be great if we could get into the rhythm, like those circadian rhythms Chris had mentioned, and get back to nature. We are nature. But anyway, when is your time up? That's a good thing to think about. How would you live your life if you knew? So, all right, guys.
Yeah.
Time to-
Shoot, time is precious and you're valuable. The most valuable, amazing part of the universe is life and the ability to live it. So, carpe diem. And I thought for a little comedy real quick before we cut out tonight, I made a little list of some of the things that people say all the time. And I was thinking about if you haven't seen it, check out on YouTube Drew TV. This is a guy that helped produce Larkin Rose's film, The Jones Plantation. Also made another cool flick, another cool movie called Barnum World. And Barnum World, it's like this Hollywood producer, and he points out how a lot of things that politicians say are statements that don't mean anything. And that's a Barnum statement. It's just like, and when you think about these, little things I'm about to read to you, these are almost all every one of them Barnum statements. Whoa! I accidentally pushed something on my computer. It started making a bunch of noise. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. But here we go. Here's the list. I'm trying to get to it. I clicked the wrong button. Oh, here it goes. Yeah, I'll do it later, someday, when things calm down, when I have more time, when the kids are older, when I retire, when the economy gets better, when the right leader gets elected, when everyone else wakes up. I'm just waiting for the right moment. I'm not ready yet. I missed my chance. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'll start Monday. I'll start next year. I just need to get through this week. There's never enough time. I'm running out of time. I don't have time. Time is money. Can't afford to slow down. I have no choice. I have to keep grinding. Busy is good. If you're not hustling, you're falling behind. I'm killing time, I'm wasting time, I'm doing time, I'm serving time, punching the clock, deadline, crunch time, race against time. Time is ticking, beat the clock. Only time will tell. Time heals all. Everything happens in time. It wasn't meant to be. Just give it time. Maybe one day. The world isn't ready. People wake up eventually. Most of them don't mean anything. You got to make your time count, and that's up to you. And that's really just putting value where it belongs. This is a gift of the universe. Make use of it and make use to speak truth and explore what freedom could really be. Thanks, folks. This is One Great Work Warriors. My name's Chris. Anybody else got any last words before we sign out? All right, we'll see you next time, guys.
Peace out to Crip Rick.
Oh yeah, we're missing Rick tonight. So.
Yeah, he's been thinking about us and the great work as well. I'm sure but yeah,
he'll be back around
for sure, yo. Notice where the sun shines around your area. By the way, we're all scattered across the globe and all that, but yeah, look back. Like that is a celestial clockwork in and of itself. So we could manage time without the digital and whatever wristwatch aspects that are got us constricted around the wrist or whatever, right? So yeah, it's not the best way to end it out, but yeah, I appreciate that list of things you had to say, Chris, and everyone's input and all that stuff. So yeah, peace out, brothers.
Yeah, shine bright, shine that light. Later on, folks.